Alright, Shalom. First of all, I'm going to start this lesson off by giving all the praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai Ba'ashem Rakakudash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, our great millstone. Honors to our brothers who are still fervently pushing the word in sincerity and in faith. And Shalom to all the sincere believers. Now, this lesson is going to be based on this incident that happened at an Indonesian regional parliament building. So through the Spirit, I'm going to read this article, get some precepts, and Lord's will, you're edified. It says 3 dead after mob sets fire to Indonesian regional parliament building. It says an angry mob set fire to a local parliament building in an Indonesian provincial capital, leaving at least 3 people dead and 5 others hospitalized, officials said. The blaze in Makassar, the capital city of South Sulawesi province, began late Friday. Television reports showed the provincial council building ablaze overnight, causing the area to turn an eerie orange color. Rescuers retrieved 3 bodies by Saturday morning, while 5 people were hospitalized with burns or with broken bones after jumping from the building. Protesters in West Java's Bandung City also set a regional parliament ablaze on Friday, but no casualties were reported. In Surabaya, Indonesia's second largest city, protesters stormed the regional police headquarters after destroying fences and torching vehicles. Security forces fired tear gas and used water cannons, but demonstrators fought back with fireworks and wooden clubs. Foreign embassies in Jakarta, including the U.S., Australia, and Southeast Asian countries, had advised their citizens in Indonesia to avoid demonstration areas or large public gatherings. Calm largely returned to Indonesia's capital on Saturday as authorities cleaned up burned-out cars, police offices, and bus shelters that were set ablaze by angry protesters. 5 days of protests began in Jakarta on Monday, sparked by reports that all 580 lawmakers received a monthly housing allowance of 50 million in addition to their salaries. The allowance introduced last year is almost 10 times the Jakarta minimum wage. Critics argue the new allowance is not only excessive, but also insensitive at a time when most people are grappling with soaring living costs and taxes and rising unemployment. Yeah. And like so many of the brothers, especially the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, have been saying that things like this are going to happen here because it's basically the same way here. People in the government are getting richer. Meanwhile, everyday citizens have to have like 2-3 jobs just to barely keep a roof over their head. So people are going to get more and more upset. And then even here in America, things like this are going to happen. People are going to start protesting and setting things on fire and just going crazy. And it's going to be a lot worse here in America because people here in America have guns. So that's going to crank things up a couple of notches. And also, like the men of the Lord said, America's the last to get hit with these type of things. It happens in other parts of the world and then it trickles down and America gets it last. But America always gets it worse. Said the protests grew wider and more violent following the death of 21-year-old ride-hailing driver Afan Kurniawan. A video on social media apparently showing his death during a rally in the capital Jakarta on Thursday shocked the nation and spurred an outcry against the security forces. Kurniawan was reportedly completing a food delivery order when he was caught in the clash. Witnesses told local television that the armored car from the National Police's Mobile Brigade unit suddenly sped through the crowd of demonstrators and hit Kurniawan, causing him to fall. Instead of stopping, the car ran over him. On Saturday, hundreds of ride-hailing drivers and students in Bali staged a solidarity demonstration over Kurniawan's death in a rare protest on the tourist island. They called for police reform and the release of those arrested during the protest. Protesters marched to Bali's regional police headquarters, and riot police fired rounds of tear gas at them to push back those who tried to reach the heavily guarded compound. Protesters responded by throwing rocks, bottles, and flares. Clashes between riot police and protesters erupted in multiple cities across Indonesia on Friday, including Medan, Solo, Yogyakarta, Magalang, Malang, Bengkulu, Pekanbaru, and Manokwari in easternmost Papua region. Some 950 people were arrested in rallies in Jakarta alone by Thursday, according to the National Commission on Human Rights and or Komnas HAM. Authorities said about 25 officers were hospitalized with serious injury after being attacked by protesters in Jakarta. The Komnas HAM believed that the number of injured people on the community side is much bigger. Amnesty International criticized Indonesia's government Saturday, saying it suppresses free speech with crackdowns on public protests. Said no one should lose their lives for exercising their right to protest, said Usman Hamid, the executive director of Amnesty International Indonesia. Said the authorities must immediately and unconditionally release anyone detained solely for exercising their rights. And that's exactly how it is out here in America, you know? Because for the most part, when people protest out here, it's calm. People are just walking down the street, with their signs, chanting whatever their demands are, and everything is calm. But then the police show up and they start antagonizing the people, doing things to get the people even more riled up. And then when the people fight back, that's when they arrest people as if they didn't cause people to get upset in the first place. That's why the Lord has to destroy this wicked system that we're in. Because the government, the police force, they're all corrupt and wicked. And like it says in Luke 12:51, suppose ye that I'm come to give peace on earth, I tell you nay, but rather division. And this is a primary example of the citizens against the government. That's division right there. And that division led to riots, and people got killed, and people got hurt, and things got set on fire, and that's just what it is. Matthew 24:12, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. And that's what we're witnessing with all this violence, whether it be here in America or in Canada or anywhere else in the world. We're witnessing the love of many wax cold because the wickedness is increasing. in particular, in this case, the wickedness of the government. They're busy stacking their pockets, and meanwhile, everyday citizens are struggling to survive, and people are just getting more and more fed up with it. And that's why the men of the Lord are saying that events like this are going to increase, and they're just going to get worse and more violent, and they're going to last longer. More people are going to get wounded, more people are going to get killed, more property and government buildings are going to get destroyed. In 2 Timothy 3 and 1, it says, "This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come." You look up the definition of perilous, and it means full of danger or risk. And we are in that time. We are in some very dangerous times because everybody's on edge out here. Everybody's pissed off. Everybody's walking a very thin line right now. And the Lord is about to push them over that line. Ecclesiasticus 39:28. There be spirits that are created for vengeance, which in their fury lay on sore strokes. In the time of destruction they pour out their force and appease the wrath of him that made them. And when these clashes happen between protesters and police, and people get killed and people get wounded, that's the Lord's spirits of vengeance being used to appease his wrath by having these two sides, you know, uh, lay sore strokes upon one another. And that appeases or satisfies the wrath of the Lord because his judgment upon these wicked people is coming to pass. Verse 29. Fire and hail and famine and death, all these were created for vengeance. And so death is a spirit of vengeance. And in these last days, a lot more people are going to be visited by that spirit of vengeance. Deuteronomy 32:39. See now that I, even I, am he, and there is no power with me. I kill and I make alive, I wound and I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. And in these type of judgments, that's what happens. These clashes between protesters and police, people end up getting killed and wounded on both sides. But that is the judgment of the Lord. First Samuel 2 and 6. The Lord Yahweh killeth and maketh alive. He bringeth down to the grave and bringeth up. Yeah, the Heavenly Father is the one who determines who's going to die and how they're going to die and when they're going to die and where they're going to die. And in this particular case, people died in these clashes. These protesters versus police. Job 4 and 7. Remember, I pray thee, whoever perished being innocent, or where were the righteous cut off? And the answer is that nobody. has ever perished being innocent. Not a man, not a woman, not a child. All of them were wicked in the eyes of the Lord, and that's why they perished. Verse 8, even as I have seen, they that plow iniquity and sow wickedness reap the same. And that's why I'm constantly saying we all reap what we sow. If you're being wicked in the eyes of the Lord, you're going to receive just a judgment for that. You're going to receive sore strokes for that. And that's what we see taking place every day. People having sore strokes laid upon them from the Lord as punishment for their wickedness. Ecclesiastes 3:1, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. Verse 2, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. And for the people who died during these clashes out there in Indonesia, it was their time. See, this is also why the men of the Lord say that we're not supposed to be involved in these protests. These people who get involved in these protests, they're fighting to try to be equal in whatever wicked society they live in. The government is always going to put themselves first above the citizens. They're always going to just want a bunch of slaves as citizens. You work till you die, and they, reap all the riches. There's never going to be equality here. But this is what happens when you go to these protests. It usually turns violent, and then people get hurt, and people get killed, and at the end of the day, we have to wait for the Lord to restore things to the way that they're supposed to be. Doing things the carnal way, it's not going to work. And this was a primary example of it not working. Because those protesters, they did all of that, and nothing's going to change. So it really wasn't worth it in the end, except for, the Lord to bring judgment upon those that he wanted to be judged in the form of people getting arrested, people getting wounded, and people getting killed. And a lot of things getting set on fire. So no matter how unfair or unjust you believe society is, understand that this is the will of the Lord. This is the way that the Lord has things set up. The Lord can make you poor, or he can make you rich, or he can just give you enough to survive. And either way, you should be grateful. Because the Lord could easily just flat out kill you and take you off this earth, and now you have nothing. But yeah, incidents like this are going to take place all over the world. Because the world is just becoming a more and more difficult and hard to bear place. So a lot more people are going to get fed up, and they're going to lash out in a very violent manner. And that's just what it's going to be. But those of us of the Hope Select, we're staying out of it. We're trusting in the Lord to, continue to provide for us and keep his hedge of protection over us and our loved ones. And it just, allow us to get through the day. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up here. Closing, I want to give all the praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rakakudash, the Wadi Bahashim Yahweh Shai, for putting the spirit on me to do this lesson. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone. Honors to all the brothers who are firmly pushing the word in sincerity and in faith, and shalom to all the sincere believers. Hope you all stay strong, stay safe, stay fervent, stay circumspect, stay prayed up. Adawan Ratazah. Till next time, shalom.